For this video, I'm going to show you how I graph a sinusoidal curve. So the first thing I do is locate my notes, and they say sinusoid equation to graph. So we took these using degrees, but you can still use them for radians. So you want to locate those. And in terms of the explanation, this first step right here says set up y-axis using C, then A. So if I look at C, that explains my sinusoidal axis, or the middle of the axis. So I'm going to, this is where you have your explanation, so I'm going to leave that blank, and that should already be done. The middle of your graph is now at 3 with a stretch of 2. So my highest point, because of my amplitude, is 5, and my lower bound is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and set up those axes. So I leave a little space for my negative x values. And I set that up first. So at the top needs to be 5. That has to be there. It's my upper bound. 4, I'm going to label 3. 2, I'm going to label 1, because those are the critical points for my sinusoid in terms of the y-axis. Okay, so then step 2 on those notes says find points number 1 and number 5 using D and B. So when we look at the sine graph, and I'm actually just going to write on this space, again, you should have part B here, which is your explanation, but I am not going to do that for you, so I can use this space. So when we're talking about sine, we start in the middle and we go up. So we have one cycle looking like this. And so when I say point 1 and 5, I'm talking about the first point of the cycle and the last point that will start the new cycle. We get our first point from our D value, which is negative because it's always opposite. So my first point is negative pi over 6, comma, sine starts in the middle, so our middle point right here, or our middle y value, is 3. Then we need to find point number 5, and we do that by looking at this point and then also finding our period. So what 2 pi over 3 tells me is this distance right here, all the way through, is 2 pi over 3. So what I really need to do is start with negative pi over 6, and this is when fractions just can give us a headache, and I need to go forward or add 2 pi over 3 to find that final point, a full cycle. So I'm going to ignore the pi for right now, and I'm just going to say this is negative 1 over 6 plus 2/3. I'm going to do that in my calculator. So negative 1 divided by 6, and then we're going to go to the right, 2 divided by 3. Notice that they're in parentheses. So that's 0.5, but I like to use fractions, so that's going to give me 1/2. Oops, excuse me. And now I'm going to insert that pi. So it's 1 pi over 2 or pi over 2. So this point right here is positive pi over 2 or positive 1/2 pi, comma, and then again we're still at that same y-axis, so we still go up 3 spaces. So let's talk about how to plot that. So we need a 1/6 and we need a 1/2. I know that we can get to 1/2 if we count by 6s, because 3 over 6 makes 1/2. So I'm going to actually make these out to 1/6. And this is where it just gets to be hard. So this is really negative pi over 6, or 1/6 pi. And so this is, so every 6 I'm going to have a pi. So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, here's pi. And so I can fill stuff in. So this is half, so this is pi over 2. If I want to keep going, this is really, and I'm going to write it down here. You don't need to write this out, but if you are a little confused. So this is really 1 pi over 6. This is 2 pi over 6. This is 3 pi over 6. So I hope that we see that 3 pi over 6 is the same as half. So we could say 1 pi over 2, and we don't usually have that 1 there. So we call it pi over 2. This is 4 pi over 6. This is 5 pi over 6. And this is 6 pi over 6, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. 1 pi is just pi, so that's why pi is right there. So this is how this goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's all sixths. If you think about that in degrees, we're really going by 30 degrees. So that might be an easier way to think about that. Okay, so at this, I'm in the middle. And at pi over 2, I'm in the middle. So then I find point 3. And point 3 is again at 3. And it's right in between these two. So if I look at this, I've got 4 spaces, so the middle is 2. Let's find this top point right here, this upper bound. So between points 1 and 3, we've got the second point, and that's at our maximum. Our maximum for this one is 5. And in the middle of points 3 and 5 is 4. I call this point 4. So it's in the middle of these 2 points and at our lower bound. So it's in the middle of these two, which is right here, and it's at the lower bound. Now I'm going to connect these dots, and I'm going to see if I can keep going. On an assessment, this would be 100% correct because you have 1 full cycle, and it goes through the y-axis. But let's keep going. So if I wanted to do this, I know my general pattern is just going over 1 and making the next dot. So I'm going to go over 1 space to the right, and I'm at my maximum over 1 space, and I'm down at the sinusoidal axis. If I want to do 2 to the left, I'm going to go over 1 space, and I go to my minimum. I go over 1 space, and I'm back at my middle or my sinusoidal axis. We do arrows on either end. And that's it. Try problems 1 and problems 3. You can check your answers in your graphing calculator. And a word on that, if I go to my window and I start at negative pi over 6, check this out. So if I type in negative pi divided by 6, because I want that to start there, and I arrow down, watch what your calculator does. It's so cool. So it calculates it as a decimal, and so it'll work with it. All right, that's it.